the 7 performances with the most significant strikes landed in a single UFC fight. This fight had a lot of history behind it. Years earlier, Marlon Vera became the first man to defeat Sean O'Malley inside the UFC. Even though that fight ended after O'Malley injured his leg, the loss was still there and Sean desperately wanted revenge. But this time everything was different. O'Malley entered the fight as the bantamweight champion, already becoming one of the UFC's biggest stars, and he finally had the perfect opportunity to settle the score in front of the world. From the opening round, the difference was obvious. Sean looked completely locked in. His precision was unbelievable. Jabs, straight punches, counters, and fast combinations kept landing while Vera struggled to find the right distance. But he never could. Every time Marlon tried to move forward, O'Malley welcomed him with clean shots. And as the rounds went on, the damage started to pile up. What made it even crazier was Vera's durability. Most fighters would have fallen much earlier, but Marlon kept walking forward despite the punishment. By the end of the 5 rounds, Sean O'Malley had landed 230 significant strikes, a historic number for the bantamweight division. And more importantly, he got his revenge, successfully defended his title, and proved he was operating on a completely different level. 6. Jamal Hill vs. Glover Teixeira. UFC 283. When this fight was announced, many people believed Glover Teixeira's experience would make the difference. After all, Glover was already a legend in the light heavyweight division. He had defeated Jan Blachowicz to become champion and remained one of the most respected veterans in the entire UFC. But standing across from him was Jamal Hill, a dangerous striker chasing his first UFC title. And what happened that night turned into an absolute war. Hill started throwing heavy shots immediately. Fast jabs, hooks, uppercuts. It felt like every combination was landing clean on Glover's face. But the most incredible part was the Brazilian's toughness. Teixeira absorbed brutal shots and still kept moving forward, trying to pressure Hill and change the pace of the fight. However, Jamal never slowed down. For 5 straight rounds, he punished Glover with sharp combinations and relentless striking volume. By the end of the fight, Hill had landed 232 significant strikes and became the new UFC light heavyweight champion by unanimous decision. That night, he didn't just win a belt, he delivered one of the most impressive offensive performances in the division's history. 5. Nate Diaz vs. Donald Cerrone. UFC 141. Long before becoming a global superstar because of his fights with Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz was already known for one dangerous weapon: endless striking volume. At UFC 141, he faced Donald Cerrone, one of the most feared strikers of that era. Cerrone entered the fight with serious momentum, and many fans believed his kicking game and experience would be too much for Nate. But Diaz came out completely inspired. Right from the start, he pressured Cerrone with his signature long boxing combinations, constantly throwing punches from range. Cerrone tried to respond, but Nate simply never stopped punching. It was like he had unlimited cardio. Round after round, Diaz controlled the exchanges, landing more and more strikes while Cerrone became increasingly frustrated. What makes this performance even more impressive is that at the time, landing that many strikes seemed almost impossible. Nate Diaz finished the fight with 238 significant strikes landed, proving that his pressure-heavy style could overwhelm even elite-level opponents. That performance helped build the reputation that would later turn him into one of the UFC's most beloved stars. 4. Jared Cannonier vs. Marvin Vettori. If anyone needed proof that Marvin Vettori has one of the greatest chins in MMA history, this fight is the perfect example. Jared Cannonier entered the fight known for his terrifying knockout power. Many of his opponents simply couldn't survive his punches. But Marvin is not a normal fighter. From the opening moments, Cannonier started landing huge shots. Jabs, crosses, hooks, punches that would have knocked out most middleweights. And somehow Marvin kept walking forward. That turned the fight into a complete war. Every round became more violent than the last, with Cannonier constantly dealing damage while Marvin tried to answer back with pressure of his own. The damage on Marvin's face became more obvious with every minute, but he never stopped fighting. That incredible durability allowed Cannonier to break the middleweight record for significant strikes landed. 241 significant strikes. An insane number that shows both Cannonier's offensive ability and Marvin's unbelievable toughness. 3. Rob Font vs. Marlon Vera. Rob Font has one of the best jabs in the entire UFC. And against Marlon Vera, it felt like he threw it for 25 straight minutes. From the opening round, Font came out determined to control the fight with volume and precision. Every time Vera tried to close the distance, Rob answered with fast jabs and non-stop combinations. It almost looked impossible to keep up with his pace. What makes this fight even crazier is that despite absorbing huge amounts of damage, Vera still found dangerous moments. He even landed hard shots and scored important takedowns. But while those moments happened occasionally, Font never stopped working. He kept striking, piling up points, and adding damage round after round. By the end of the fight, Rob Font had landed 271 significant strikes, a historic number for the bantamweight division. Even though Vera won the fight because of the more damaging moments, Font's offensive performance remains one of the most impressive displays of pure volume striking ever seen. 2. Max Holloway vs. Brian Ortega. UFC 231. Brian Ortega entered this fight undefeated. Many people believed he was the man destined to dethrone Max Holloway and become the new featherweight champion. He had already finished several elite fighters and looked dangerous everywhere. But Max Holloway delivered an absolute masterclass. From the beginning, he controlled the pace with non-stop pressure, fast boxing combinations, and incredible striking volume. And as the fight went on, Holloway somehow seemed to speed up even more. Ortega kept trying to survive, but the damage became brutal. His face was completely destroyed by the later rounds. Max was landing from every possible angle, and it felt impossible to stop him. Round after round, the technical gap became more obvious. Finally, after 4 rounds of severe punishment, the doctor stepped in and stopped the fight to protect Ortega. Holloway had landed 290 significant strikes. That night, he didn't just defend his title, he proved he was in the middle of one of the greatest championship runs the featherweight division had ever seen. 1. Max Holloway vs. Calvin Kattar. UFC on ABC. And now we arrive at what many people consider the greatest striking performance in MMA history. Before this fight, Max Holloway was coming off 2 straight decision losses against Alexander Volkanovski. A lot of fans started wondering if Max's best days were already behind him. Then came Calvin Kattar, and Holloway responded in the most brutal way imaginable. From the very first round, he started landing punches from every angle possible. Jabs, hooks, long combinations, body shots, perfect counters. It looked unreal. It was like watching someone play a video game. But the craziest part was that Max never slowed down. While most fighters get tired after a few minutes, Holloway kept throwing punches as if the fight had just started. There was even a legendary moment where he started talking to the commentators while slipping punches in the middle of an exchange. Then he shouted the line that became iconic. "I'm the best boxer in the UFC," and honestly that night it looked true. After 5 full rounds of total domination, Holloway finished with 445 significant strikes landed. A record so ridiculous that it almost feels impossible to break. And that performance didn't just silence the doubts surrounding Max Holloway, it cemented one of the greatest performances ever witnessed inside the octagon.